Welcome to a new episode of Think Out Loud. And today we are talking about cookies. So this is a slightly different episode this week. More than what's on my mind, it's what's being forced on my mind, which is Google Chrome getting rid of third-party cookies and all the complexities around that. And it's quite confusing. So I thought it might be a good idea to break down some of the confusion around it and, get some ideas and maybe some feedback and input from some of the listeners as well. Let's break it down right back to basics. So what exactly is a cookie? Essentially, it's a file which captures information about you and your online preferences, and it sits on your browser. So when you're searching or when you're on the internet and you're going on different sites, those websites drop what's called a cookie, which is a little file on your browser as you're traveling from site to site, and it captures information and data about you. Now, there's a number of different types of cookie. A first-party cookie is a file which is created on a website that you're actually on, and that website domain is the website that stores that information. So, for example, you might go on to the likes of Amazon and you'll have your language setting, so it will know that you're visiting and you want to see the website in English. You'll also have perhaps something that you've looked at in your basket from the previous day, and you have like a username and password and all those types of things. So those are first-party cookies, and that's all about data which is captured that essentially is shared from you directly with the website that you are on. Things like page views, how many times you've visited, etc. Now, third-party cookies are slightly different to that. These are files which capture data about you, but from different domains, so different websites than the one that you're on at the moment. And this is where advertisers actually use data to see your whole online behavior. So if I've visited a number of different sites, I may then have been dropped a third-party cookie at some point. My user behavior would have been tracked. And then what will essentially happen is the advertiser can then target me with advertising that is based on that behavior on other websites. So there's a lot of controversy around that because essentially it's tracking me and my whole online behavior without me really knowing. So you'll have seen the pop-ups on pages due to GDPR to kind of opt in now to the fact that you're being tracked. But the likes of Apple and FLoC, they've actually blocked third-party cookies already. And Google Chrome is the last one which still is retaining them at the moment. And they're making a shift away from that. So they've given us a time frame of 2022 in order for advertisers to get things in line, in order to try and help support advertisers to come up with other ways of advertising without having to rely on third-party cookies. Or so they say. The flip side of that is that, they are kind of dragging it out as long as they can because they're making money from those third-party cookies, even though their tracking is actually reliant on first-party for most of their activities. One of the outcomes of this has been what is called an FLoC, a FLoC. And that term you'll come across a lot. So I wanted to try and break that down and make it into a bit more sense. So a FLoC, a federated learning of cohorts. But what exactly does that mean? Federated learning is a generic machine learning model that improves based on anonymized, encrypted feedback from local devices. If you want to learn more about federated learning, there's a video in the link below. And cohorts simply means groups of people who have shared qualities or interests or behaviours. So essentially, grouping together based on a number of different algorithms, people that have similar qualities and interests. But what does that exactly mean? Well, when Google strips away their third-party cookies out of their browser, what will essentially happen is that there will need to be another way to engage with the right target audience. So you'll no longer be able to follow them around with remarketing or retargeting strategies from ad platforms due to the fact that they're based on the fact that third-party cookies are passing all that lovely data back to you to target them by what their behavior has been on different websites. So if I've seen a pair of shoes on one particular site, I may visit a different site and be targeted with an ad about that pair of shoes I previously was interested in. So that's no longer going to be a way of targeting because we're not going to have, there's going to be a gap within that data. So what these FLoCs are there to do is to say, well, let's anonymize the users and allow engagement or reach to people that still have behaviors and interests that are relevant to our products and services. However, we'll group them into such mass groups that it keeps the privacy of individuals private and secure. And one of the really good examples that I actually came across on doing some research into this, which was on the Wired site, they gave the example of the Netflix algorithm. So if you think about the viewing history and how Netflix will deliver certain programs or films that they think you'll be interested in watching, if I have an interest in watching horror films, for example, and a similar person B has a interest in watching horror films, we don't watch exactly the same films. They're similar, but they're not identical. So, but the likelihood is that if I've watched 5 different horror films, that person B will also be interested in those 5 horror films which I have watched. So I thought that was a really good way of trying to imagine how this FLoC situation actually works and put it into a bit of perspective, because all the things that you read tend to be just on the kind of what is this and what is this, but without giving examples, sometimes it's difficult to get your head around. So in simple terms, ads will be run based on shared interests, which is the federal learning part of groups of people that have those interests, the cohorts. So hopefully that makes a bit more sense when you're reading up yourself on some of these articles. However, as we know, things are changing all the time, and this is one way of addressing the third-party cookie situation. There's already been reports, an article recently from DigiDay. They reported that Amazon are actually looking to block Google's FLoCs, and therefore that could have a serious impact into how you can track these users and the data across the web. So more to come on that. I'll put the link for the DigiDay article in the notes below. What does the end of third-party cookies mean for you? Well, there's loads of unknowns out there, and the fundamentals are that you need to be nurturing your customers. And within B2C environments, when you're selling to consumers, that's slightly more easy, because if they're purchasing from you, you've got a lot of data that you can capture and store. They're sharing that data with you. You've got past purchases, you've got details about where they live and you know, their whole profile that you can use to re-engage them or similar people. However, when it comes to B2B, it's maybe a little bit more complicated than that, because You don't go onto a B2B website and, regularly go back and purchase things. In some instances you do, but often it may be something like software that you're investing in that you might pay a license for, or you may pay a one-off as a company. You're not individually purchasing. It's a business purchase to a business purchase, and therefore it's slightly different because businesses are still trying to reach the individuals, not necessarily the corporate umbrella or the company itself. How will B2Bs actually evolve the data and capture data so that they can build a better profile of their customers and their clients, and also of who those prospect clients are and where they may be? So here's just a quick few ideas that might help you. So anyone that signs up or logs in, if you're the type of platform where that is available, I'm not suggesting that if you're not to add that as an option, but if you are, then obviously there's a lot of information you can gain through that. And you've already got a direct channel of conversation because you've got their email in most cases to email them, to ask feedback, to get reviews, to get insights, even to run surveys, etc. Account-based marketing, or ABM, which is bounded around a lot. Many of you will be doing that already. And I think the key thing about this is really matching together the marketing and the sales team. Often they're quite separate, but the sales team have a lot of insights about the audience pain points. They're at the forefront of conversations, and there should be within your CRM systems ways of integrating what the sales team's learnings are with the marketing team so that you can build more effective strategies. SEO and PPC. So because users are actively looking for your products and services, they're still looking. They're the ones that are pursuing that search. Therefore, it shouldn't really be impacted by these particular changes. So keep investing in those. Google user interests. So this is where we're talking about the FLoCs. So how to engage via advertising to groups of people who have those similar behaviors and interests and qualities. Inbound marketing. So often, again, there's probably a billion articles on what inbound marketing is, and each one tells a slightly different story depending on what that company is trying to sell to you. But inbound marketing really is about offering a solution to your clients. It's solving problems, it's offering answers, whether that be through video or images or studies or surveys or insights. No matter what it is, it's about putting useful content in front of your audience that builds trust, so that client or that prospect then realizes that you've got knowledge, you've got understanding, and it gives them an opportunity to then weigh you up against the competition. If you're giving something away that others aren't, if you're giving guidance and advice that others aren't, you're going to likely become a more trustworthy brand. LinkedIn ads. Because users share their data with LinkedIn, i.e. first-party data directly with LinkedIn, when you advertise via LinkedIn channels and you segment what audiences you're looking to engage with, really you're already following the LinkedIn privacy policies that are protecting those individuals. So therefore, it's a really good channel for you to engage with the right audience, with the right messaging. And so that really is a key channel, I would say, where you've got a lot more insight to maybe some others. There are a couple of others that are a little bit similar here, which is targeting contextually. So when we talk about contextual ads, it's nearly like, if you take a step back to what the Google Display Network used to be, you used to say, right, I want to appear alongside content which users are reading that is relevant to my products and services. So advertising on publications or platforms or next to content that's relevant to what your user is reading. And that equally is similar for something like YouTube. If you're targeting via interest, via channels where people are viewing relevant content to find answers, and you're advertising alongside that content, that can be a really effective way of engaging the right users. Equally, producing your own YouTube videos is another way, which kind of taps into the inbound content piece that we mentioned a minute ago. So there are loads of different ways that you can still keep your brand in front of your target audience. And it's a lot of hard work. You know, that I've just reeled off pages and pages of notes which I've been making as I've been going through this process of really learning how businesses can engage their right clients and the right people at the right time on the right channels. So there's some food for thought. It would be really good to hear anyone's feedback. Email me, message me on any of the social media channels. It'd be great to hear how you as a business to business are evolving around these changes of third-party cookies. That's been me, a bit of a longer one this week. So hopefully you found it interesting, and I will speak to you next week. Cheers then. Bye-bye.